Have you ever had a money or career question you really wanted to ask, but didn't know who to go to or just felt uncomfortable even bringing it up? You're not alone. Talking about money can feel intimidating, even scary. And that's exactly what I'm trying to change. That's why I created a free virtual coffee chat, a casual, no pressure 20-minute conversation where you can bring one thing you're wrestling with and we'll talk it through. No judgment, no jargon, no sales pitch, just clarity, ease, and a real answer from someone who gets it. If you've got something on your mind, don't sit in the confusion. Book a spot at limitfreelife.com and let's sip and sort it out. Hey there, and welcome to Money and You. I'm Michelle Perkins, your host. My search for more fulfilling work led me to career and business coaching, where I stumbled upon a game-changing discovery. Money issues often start with our mindset and habits. You see, our relationship with money is the key to overcoming those frustrating financial obstacles. As an entrepreneur, coach, and problem solver, I'm passionate about helping you create a great relationship with money. Because, turns out, that's the foundation for a limit-free life. Each week on Money and You, I speak with amazing guests about all things money, mindset, practical tips, and everything in between. We're here to give you new insights, education, and empowerment so money can be one of your favorite relationships. So join us for some lively conversations and let's transform your financial life together. Hello, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Money and You Show. And I'm so excited about this episode and this guest today because we are off and running into 2026. And I had the good fortune of being on her podcast earlier in the year. Did She Really Say That is the name of it. I would suggest you follow it. It's great. And she has some really great techniques for planning and for business owners, to work with some different paradigms. And it's super interesting. And this is going to be a great kickoff to a new year. So, help you get your ideas in order and the plans to execute on those ideas. So I'm so happy today to bring you former chef for the Walt Disney World Resort, restaurateur, entrepreneur, and CEO of Truth Bomb Marketing. After leaving Disney, Katrina became a small business consultant. Her first business venture was to turn a struggling online digital marketing company into a multi-million-dollar success story. Having coached, mentored, and trained thousands of entrepreneurs, the one thing she saw over and over again was the burnout and struggle female entrepreneurs deal with. Why was the proven training failing women in business? What was missing for women? The question ignited a fire in Katrina and down a path to understanding how women and men differ in physiology, hormonally, and emotionally when it comes to birthing, nurturing, and scaling a business to revenue of $1 million plus. Dedicated to supporting female entrepreneurs, Katrina created a revolutionary business training program called Create Her Business Rewire, the first ever business education and training designed for how women think and feel within their energetic rhythm. Alongside the Create Her planner, women are finally experiencing balance in all areas of their lives, which often is the goal for women. When the focus begin with herself, women discover a freedom to dream big, increase revenue, and design a marketing strategy that works for them. Katrina, welcome.
Yeah, Michelle, thank you so much. It's an absolute honor and a pleasure to be here, kicking off the new year and having this conversation with you. So thank you again, and super excited to have this conversation with you.
Yeah, thank you. I'm so glad you're here. I found your perspective to be so powerful, really, and important because, I don't know, I think all of us have gone through, especially those of us who have been in business for a while, sort of like year after year, you realize I'm exhausted a lot, and I'm hitting these walls, and then I'm just picking myself up, by my bootstraps and pushing myself forward, and it's just it doesn't feel as good as it should. And actually, I'll just share this with you. I was speaking to somebody who was actually talking about pleasure. She's like a pleasure coach, and we got into this, and she's like, having that perspective of pleasure around all things, around business, around it really shifts your mindset when you think, of it that way. So anyway, I'm gonna let you jump in and share a little, first of all, about how you what your journey was along the way here.
Yeah, no, and just to tag in onto the pleasure thing, it was actually something interesting because I do read a lot. I've been so business focused for so many years. I read like thousands, it feels like, of business books, right?
Yeah.
And so stumbling across a book that talks about like a woman's pleasure and how it's what like we actually feel pleasure. We actually are designed to receive pleasure. And it's such becomes such a dirty word sometimes when we say it because it's used as an innuendo for a sexual instead of a actual life experience. So that actually kind of led on my journey is understanding what it is. And we actually redesigned within some of our training. We got rid of the vision board. We created a pleasure vision board because adding pleasure for women and designing that vision board shifts exactly what they put on there and what's important to them. And so it was kind of a nice little evolution of how this all kind of got started. So like you asked earlier, just a minute ago, my journey was actually pretty interesting because I didn't think I was going to get here. I started back in digital marketing, probably back in 2008, before it was cool to be a digital marketer.
Yeah. It was a little simpler as well.
We had one platform to really focus on, maybe like two or three, right? It was like really simple what our strategy was back then. And when I left Disney, I loved Disney. Honestly, it was probably my formal training ground into a lot of what I do and create for concepts because where else can you go to really understand how and why people want to come to a magical place? Mm-hmm. And I think as women, we want to be in that magical place, and yet we feel like we've got to be facing reality all the time. So we carry a lot more burden in what we do. And so when I left that corporate and I retired from the kitchen and jumped into the world of entrepreneurship, the first company that I always joked with him. I said, you took a chance on a chef to bring a Disney experience into a digital space that didn't exist before. Like, how do you create that raving fan, that revenue generating, had that place that they want to come to over and over again? And can you create that digitally in an online experience? And the answer turned out to be yes. So as I worked with this company, developing out different aspects of their community, their coaching programs, their content creation, it became evident that, we are all looking for ways to better improve both ourselves and then bring that forth through our business. So I've coached a lot of high level, entrepreneurs, 6 and 7, 8 figure earners over the years. But I started looking back about 3 years ago. Honestly, Michelle, I started looking back at all the individuals that I've helped that have been successful. And the ones that were stuck or disappeared were predominantly female. Mm-hmm. I watched the men continue to thrive and reinvent themselves, but I saw women dropping out, disappearing, unable to sustain. And when I started calling them up and saying, hey, what's going on? They're like, man, I couldn't keep up with it with everything else I was doing. So that got me to our conversation that we started before our podcast. What is the difference between men and women and when it comes to building businesses? And is it actually tangible, or is it just a feeling? Does it exist in the world? Mm-hmm. And so I hired a business muse, and unfortunately she doesn't exist in that capacity anymore.
Oh, interesting.
But I didn't know what a business muse was. But she asked me a question. Am I allowed to say a swear word, or am I going to blip out a word? Okay, I'm asking.
Tony and I are fine with.
You might get triggered with this for those that are listening, because it is a word that it really put me back on my heels the first time I was asked this question, and I had to sit with it. And so I was talking with her about my life's dreams, what I wanted to do, why I was burnt out, why it felt inauthentic the way I was building my business. Something was off. I couldn't put my finger on it. And the question she asked me, I was so offended, was, have you consulted your pussy? Yes. So I took a step back, right? Because I was like, I was offended by the word. I had a hard time saying the word after she said it to me. It felt icky. It felt off. And yet I knew that question was going to become the thread that I had to pull on. Like, what was it about my own body that I was so repulsed by? Became kind of the question. So that really sparked the conversation for me. What is the difference that women have, and why do we feel the way we feel about our bodies, and how is that impacting our ability to be around money, be around business, be around people, and most importantly, love ourselves? And so that was the start of this incredible journey through the world of where I've gotten to where I am today, saying that yes, there is a psychological hormonal difference on how women interpret and work within the realm of business, and we need to feel safe in our business. And right now we don't feel safe with the language that we're given to build our business. The structure in which we're designing our business doesn't feel safe to us. It feels very structured, hard, and it feels like it's not ours. So what can we do to start changing that, to really have women thrive in this conversation around business, become the yin and the yang of the business world, not to dominate or replace, but to actually coexist in a more cohesive, woven fabric, instead of a push, maybe looking more of a receive.
Wow, that is so interesting, and it's so true. And there are differences. There are differences in the way women think and feel about money. There are differences in the way women, operate within the work world. There's also, I mean, to come back to reality, there is a reality, and statistics will prove this out, that women take on more than men in terms of household chores and kids and everything else. So, there's this overload that is sort of not talked about that much. I mean, it is more now, but it was always like all of that stuff I just need to do in addition to my business. And it was just a given that you had to, we didn't really plan around that. I mean, I try to now actually leave a few hours for those errands and those, financial things that nobody else is doing that I need to take care of on top of everything.
Yeah.
So, let's, you're a few things. You're a marketing, expert, but you're also a productivity expert. And I don't know, where do you place yourself? Where's your priority right now?
So it is definitely in the productivity. So while I understand the world of marketing, and I think that's the great background piece for me, is I understand what it looks like to get your business out there and what the tools that you're going to be using. But honestly, for women, the productivity was really the part where I see us struggling the most, because I've sat in those behind closed doors, high level masterminds. And so when we sit in them, they teach us productivity. If you've ever been inside of one of them, they say, here's a section in productivity. This is what you're supposed to do. Here's your daily method of operation, your DMO, if you've never heard of that before. Here's like all the tasks you need to do. And it felt every time I sat in that room and I watched it get facilitated, I just watched women crumble. Over and over again. Like emotionally, they were beaten up. They cried afterwards because they're thinking to themselves, you want me to get up at what time? 5 a.m. in the morning. You want me to do this 30-minute time for myself, but I've got to get the kids up into school. I've got to take care of this. And their brain is already racing. And then you build on top of this. And then you're saying, okay, and then you have to do all of these things also throughout your day. And this consistency and this must-have type of a thing. Michelle, I watched women break down, and I knew in that moment that there was something wrong with how productivity is perceived between men and women, and it needed to shift. And I never thought I would dive into the world of the hormonal cycle of men and women and how much that impacts us. So the background of knowing marketing has been great in terms of how to cycle sync that. But really what I find when I work with women now specifically is that it's time and productivity, because we always say that I want more time. I wish there were more of me. I wish we could do this. We have this desire to do more. But what's funny is when I work with women, we talk about productivity and we talk about doing less or doing tasks that align within their energy cycle. Then things begin to shift, because there's almost like this aha, like, oh, I'm not broken. Yeah, there are going to be weeks when I don't feel like doing crap, or there's going to be times during the month when I just want to sit down and binge watch or take time to myself or something. And we don't give ourselves that grace, because what we're mimicking and mirroring is the male strategy of business, which works for the men. But at the same time, the men are also asking us women to help them slow down. Yeah. But if we're not doing it for ourselves, we can't mirror that as a model for the men even to take into consideration, because now we're matching them pace for pace. It's exhausting for us and it's exhausting for them.
Yeah.
Hence why we burn out.
Ooh, yeah. And, it really, I don't know if you've been listening to this, but it seems like so many of the people that I've followed for a long time have been very, very successful, especially not so much the men, but the women.
Yeah.
Although I do have a mentor group, and one of the men in it, who is older now, he hit some kind of a wall, and now he's talking about the same thing. Getting away, going on retreats, like doing more of the things you love versus just the work. And so I think we reach some personal point where something hits us and suddenly we need to change. Better to change before you need to change, but still. And yeah, I love what you're saying, because these people that I've followed for a long time, a lot of them now, they've hit, you can argue, well, they got to this huge pie success point, and that's why they're now able to relax and do this. I think that's kind of what goes on in the back of women's heads. But yet they're all talking about the same thing. Yeah. Like, let's not try to do everything anymore. Let's not, implement every marketing strategy. You don't have to show up everywhere. You don't have, and so most of it is about shedding things. It's about what can we let go? And I keep hearing that as the question for 2026. It's not what am I going to do this year? It's what am I going to let go of first so that there's space.
Yeah. And that there needs to be that space, right? And I think that we've done all the heavy, since 2008. So you're looking at almost 2 decades of being in this perpetual, actually you could go back even to like 2005, 6, 4, like you can go back 20 years of this constant pacing has been exhausting for everyone. Right. Yeah. And so when the men have been teaching us women how to do exactly what they do in business, it's the same person, it's the same mirror, it's the same productivity. There's no differential. And that's, I think, where we're really struggling as women is like, well, we need a different methodology, a different approach. So let's talk a little bit about how we've structured the world around us in business. And men, I love you for this. Thank you for this gift. Thank you for the structure, because the 7 foundational pieces of a business, knowing your audience, knowing what your brand, knowing your financials, like that's the structure core. As women, we need to shift how we approach it, right? So one of the interesting things in my research is that for men, you guys actually cycle through hormonally, typically a 24-hour cycle. You wake up in the morning, high testosterone, high cortisone levels, you're ready to go, literally, right? But this is where the things like the Miracle Morning came in, the 5 a.m. morning, eat that frog. Like a lot of the training is geared around how you guys emotionally wake up to ready to tackle your day. So when you teach that to women, it doesn't always fit with us, and we do it for a little bit of time, but then we find that we can't maintain that, right? So those methodologies really do work for the male hormonal structure. In the afternoon, testosterone begins to wane, right? So what over the centuries men have done around that time period is they entered in happy hour, right? Mm-hmm. So this is their time to go get social. There might be an afternoon golf. They might have some sort of meeting, but they're getting more social in the afternoon. So there's a lot of things that they've implemented based around how they feel, right? Then in the evenings, their estrogen kicks in. They're feeling a little more romantic. This is why guys typically date more towards the evening time. This is their time where they feel more connected to another human being, right? And so then they go to sleep, they reset, and they start their day all over again. So they kind of go through this, and they do have what I'll talk about next, but it's not quite as extreme. So the circadian rhythm, which we're taught over and over again, is what we're told is the primary. You need to make sure you're getting enough sleep at night. This works really well for the male body. Mm-hmm. The female body, right? And this is something that we can continue to discuss inside of here. And I'm telling you, I'm not new to this research, but it's still relatively new for what we're hearing as women. So it's called the infradian rhythm. And the first person I heard this from is actually Alisa Vitti. She wrote a book called In the Flow, and she had been researching women's monthly cycle as a tool that, when acknowledged, instead of just the period that we have as women, everything else that leads up to and out of that cycle, how when we energetically embrace that begins to shift. And I'll talk to you for those listeners that are out there in our audience that's listening. You're asking, well, I'm postmenopausal. I have had, medical hysterectomy. So I'm, we've got different things we're dealing with as women. I'm going to address this really quick here first, because I want to say that we don't ever stop our infradian rhythm. And the reason I say that, which is contradictory to a lot of the information, but also starting to reflect it, is that I work with a woman who has 3 children, 3 females under the age of 12. When we started talking about this, and she homeschools them also, which is actually kind of another advantage here. She goes, I actually watch my daughters cycle already. I can actually combine their schooling for when I know that they're paying more attention. They stop eating at certain times. They're actually more aware of their body, especially younger. So she says, I actually watch this monthly cycle happen in my girls before they've even hit their menstrual phase, which is what we seem to be stuck on when we talk about the infradian rhythm. When we get into the infradian rhythm as women, our bodies are naturally hormonally going through a change every single day for 28 to 30 days. That cycle does impact how we look at money, how we look at ourselves, how we look at our business, how we look at our relationships. And so understanding that for ourselves, yes, I could teach this all the guys, but women, we first have to understand what's going on in our body. So when I was asked that question by my business muse, have you consulted your pussy? I recognized that I haven't consulted my body. I built a business in the analytical up here, but I never fully embodied it as a woman. And that started to shift for me. So when I started, when Elisa first said, here's the 4 energetic phases of your cycle: your follicular phase, your high creativity, high cognitive thinking, problem solving, able to look at the bigger picture. And this usually runs you 7 to 10 days, the beginning of your cycle, right? And then when you get into your ovulatory phase, high communication. And I have a woman right now that's testing and tracking for when women ask for sales, she's able to ask for more. She's able to get what she wants because she's in a highly communicative state. If she's talking with her partner, she's talking with her kids, this is a really great time for her to communicate her wants, needs, and desires.
Interesting.
And she receives that into her life, right? And then she flows into her follicular phase, which is, in the medical, this is the releasing of the uterus lining also, but we tend to be more internal. We start looking at more of our feelings. We start taking all that creativity, high stuff, and we start adding emotion into it. So we do it a little differently than the men do. We're not doing this in 24 hours. We're doing this over a 28-day period. And so this is what we took in. Then when we talk about menstruals are downtime to reflect. And I thought it was really interesting when I was starting to read the studies that the woman's brain during her menstrual cycle, her left and right side are having more connective activity than any time during the month. So she's actually creating more neural pathways during her menstrual cycle because left and right are communicating at a higher rate than any other time. Which had me ask the question, and I don't have the science to back this, if that's why we feel like women mature faster, is because our brains every single month are getting a high dose of communication between left and right side.
Interesting. Okay.
Right? So this science that's coming out is because women are now in positions of studying ourselves at the scientific level. We're asking questions, we're doing the research, and so we're literally discovering what the female body is capable of at all different levels. So when you start bringing that into the world of business and money, we start recognizing that we should never make financial decisions during our period.
Yeah.
Bad time. Not the best time.
Sense. Yeah.
Right? Do it afterwards, but not during that cycle. So don't make big financial decisions during those times. So understanding that inside of your cycle, inside of your business, right? Knowing when these are tasks, you should be doing certain tasks in your business, when you should be looking at money. If you're reviewing your portfolio, do that at the beginning of your cycle, not towards the end of it, right? But because you don't want to be too emotional. We talk about being emotional as a woman, right? Do it when you're clearer thinking and you're more communicative and you can ask for it. And that's like 14 days out of the month that you can be literally in a money conversation, right? So it's really, it is fascinating.
Yeah.
Isn't it? You're like,
but intuitively it feels right. It feels like, it would make so much more sense. And we've all been in those phases where we're really emotional and everybody is bothering us and everything is triggering us. And, when we're not even seeing anything straight. Yeah.
And it's so interesting when you're able to communicate that to your business team, like if you're able to communicate that to your closest people, when you're able to communicate that to your spouse, when you're able to understand what your body is doing and actually ask or receive that information back, you'll be surprised how less emotional we become. Because now we're not trying to explain something that's happening, we're starting to understand what our body's doing, and we become more aware. And that awareness becomes our power, because then we become more self-aware of what's going on in our bodies, what's going on, and how it's impacting our conversations with everybody. Mm-hmm. And so that awareness, is when we communicate, it shifts so much in the world of business. And so for those that are in the post-peri surgical menopausal state, what's been interesting is I've talked with women and they said, okay, energetically, I still know something's happening, but I don't have the hormonal structure like I did back, right? So what does this now look like for me? And I said, oh no, like, crap, like you're asking a question, I don't have an answer. And I don't think anybody really did. I said, so what do we want to look at? And it was interesting is they said, well, throughout history and teachings, women have always taught other women to follow the moon. Yeah. Because the moon cycle is a 4-phase cycle. It goes through a 28 to 30 day cycle period also, and it mimics a lot of the energetics that you would hormonally experience as a woman. So I said, well, that's interesting. I said, I don't know enough about this, but tell me more, right? So Michelle, what became fascinating is that it was the women that started doing the research and have been asking more about how does the moon energy affect me? And inside of that, I said, well, you tell me. I'll be the data collector and how to implement that into a productivity tool. But the feedback is really what I'm looking for. So I need you to say, okay, during the full moon, the energy is actually more about releasing and getting centered and letting go. And yet we've been taught the full moon is about howling and energetic. And yet when I talk with women, they're like, no, I definitely feel a little more like downward and tuneward around it. So it's been interesting as they've been giving feedback. How then do we put this into the productivity tool for the women that desire to see that come alive for them and track that against their daily methods and weekly methods and monthly methods and see what shows up for them?
Wow, I love that. I also think, I mean, I commend the women actually who are helping you with this for even being able to know like how they're feeling. I mean, I know that sounds so basic, but we're so conditioned to, you know, just be doing what we think we need to be doing in the way we need to do it, that it's hard to even get, you know, tap into the feelings to know how do I feel, you know, at these different points. So I think that, do you have any tips for women on how to actually connect with these feelings?
Yeah, so crazy enough, and I told you we talk about this, so in the Create Her Planner that I designed, right? We actually tap into the moon cycle in here. And what was really fun that we did this year, so it's kind of an evolving planner. It is by no means like it just every year, every contribution adds to it. One of the things that we added in here is we have a section in here that talks about the moon cycle and the infradian rhythm against energy. So like if it is the full moon, which is coming up this Saturday, it is high magnetism. So highly magnetic. So like, what do you want into your life? So best business moves, sell, pitch, go live, host an event, launch and sell, right? And then for cash action, it says maximize cash inflow. So ask what you want to receive in terms of cash inflow. So look at like what's coming into your life. What are you attracting? What are you asking for? And what are you open to receiving, right? And so we put that in here because we recognize that money is a conversation we're not having as women. And yet we're set to, I think, 2030. So you realize less than 4 years from now, we'll have, I think, something like 2/3 of financial will be in women's hands.
Wow. Yeah.
It's huge. Right. Like the transition of financial wealth is going to be massive. And I feel like women are underprepared for understanding how money moves at a business level, at a wealth building level in the background, because it's not something we've had access to.
Right. Yeah, I love this. And it can help you to figure out, when should I be making my sales calls? When should I be sitting down and doing, because, I love to have people do these money dates, because just like we talked at the beginning of the show, if you don't set aside time for this, you will be too busy to get to it. And then then you don't make a lot of progress if you're just ignoring it. So I think this is such a helpful way to look at where your tasks, should be kind of set up.
Yeah. So go ahead. Do you have a question?
Oh, I was just, if you're helping women to plan, what are a few of the sort of, tips you would give them around this?
So for planning, I think one of the first things you have to do, and this is one of the things we intentionally put inside the Create Her Planner, is what is your dream journey? If you don't recognize the foundation underneath of you, moving forward into anything, life, business, health, finances, you're lost because you're trying to set a goal or intention that doesn't actually have a reality-based set, especially emotionally around your cycle, right? So for my women that are out there that are planning, first, sit down, take yourself through this dream journey. It's asked 12 questions. It asks you about your desires. It asks you, how do you want to get those desires into your life? And then from there, as women, can we actually integrate and plan our steps moving forward? Because if we don't have the bigger picture, we tend to get a little lost. Mm-hmm. And I know that we've been taught in a lot of the world of business, like build the plane in the air.
Yeah.
And yet I feel like as women, we need a little more planning underneath of that.
Yeah.
Because that makes us feel safe. And one of the things we want as women is like, we talk about, I want time freedom, financial freedom. We actually want time safety, financial safety, financial, family safety. We want ourselves to feel safe. And so having some, like a roadmap inside of that and understanding what it is you want to accomplish or what it is you want to design, we call it intentions. So we don't say goals anymore in the planner. We found out that women don't like goals, but they like intentions. Mm-hmm. The word lands better for us. So when you plan both plan you first. I always tell women when you plan your vacations and your rest time first.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Literally. We neglect it all the time. And I actually had a mentor of mine when we were talking about our business. He goes, you're actually saying to plan your birthdays off and holidays off. He's like, I've never done that before. He's like, it never dawned on me to schedule rest before I scheduled business.
Yeah, can I just comment on that? Because I find that so important. And it was another friend of mine who we co-work together sometimes. And we sat down, we've been planning together for a long time, and we sat down and that's the first thing she did is laid out the vacations that she wanted. They weren't set up yet, but it gave her time to imagine where do I want to go? What do I want to do this year? And then to actually put it in the calendar. And I did find that fascinating because I'd never thought about it either. And I think, beyond that, there's so many other things like even your money dates. I mean, everything should be in that calendar. And maybe before the work, because it gives you the most realistic picture of how many work hours can I really have? Because I think for me with a corporate background, I still think of my work week in that context, 40 to 60 hours of a work week. And then I imagine I can do that with everything else. And it's truly just like a fantasy. So
it is. And I think it's so important for us women that we implement that monthly rest. To literally take 2 days on your calendar, find out what works for you. If you're in your infradian rhythm, take off your menstrual day, like 1 or 2 of those days, and literally don't take a client. Yeah. Don't be on a call. Minimize your exposure. Just be, that's your time to rest. Like, it's not that I don't do anything on those days, but I minimize the high level thinking. I minimize all the stress things. And I really say, okay, what am I reflecting on during this time? Right? So take the time off. And I know so many of you are going to feel guilty.
Yeah.
You're going to feel guilt. Yeah. You're going to be like, oh, but I shouldn't because trust me, the men want us women to take a break because it gives them permission to mirror the break. And that goes back to our conversation, Michelle, when we say we've watched a lot of the high profile men over the years who are now saying, I need that vacation. I need to stop scheduling every event for my clients and for myself. And you never truly have that downtime to reflect. And how many times have you heard yourself say, do you think to yourself, man, I just need time to think?
Yeah. Yeah.
You've heard yourself say that, right, Michelle?
Yeah. Well, and that's the other thing. I do have a mentor, too, who really stresses that. And she takes her little yellow pad of paper out into the garden and sits there, and that's her thinking time. And again, we have to check ourselves because she's she's been working very, very, very hard for about 20 years, and she's made it to a level where she has a huge team and a lot more thinking time. So those of us who are thinking, well, someday I'll do that, that's the part I think that trips us up.
So the someday, one day will never happen if it's not planned.
Yeah.
One thing I've learned in a lot of my development and a lot of working with women, if we don't put it intentionally on our calendar, it will not happen.
Yeah.
This is why we put doctor's appointments and birthdays. Like, there's a section of the planner that's like, list all your birthdays. Like, the first thing I have you do is like, put in everyone's birthday.
Yeah.
Put in the holidays. When is things going to happen? Because you have to first look at, and this goes back to the dream journey, prioritize what's most important to you.
Mm-hmm.
Build your business or weave your business. I always like the word weave for women. Weave your business into the fabric of your life.
Yeah.
Because then it feels less like a job and more like a passion. It feels like something that your kids and the community around you will just see, like, we don't know whether you're playing or working.
Yeah.
And I think that's ideally what we want our lives to look like. We're getting into business because we want the time freedom, we want the financial freedom, but our lives look like just busy work.
Mm-hmm.
Our kids see that, our friends see that. We isolate ourselves because we think we have to do more and more and more, and ends up, for women, we become silos.
Mm-hmm.
And when we become a silo, we get burnt out because we feel like nobody can relate. And I can't tell you how many women I've coached who says, I didn't think anybody else was going through what I was going through. And it's because we silo ourselves trying to do all this busy work instead of breathing and relaxing and expanding and honoring our cycle of our lives and saying, okay, men, this is what we do as women. We're still getting everything done. We're still creating that financial success. We're still living. Like, I was talking with a client and she's taking on a corporate client. And I said, okay, how many corporate clients do you need for your, let's talk money here. She's like, okay, I want to make this much money this year. I said, great. So if you took on a corporate client, how long do you want to work with them for? She's like, 6 months. I said, so 6 months, at this point, you're going to be charging this much money for your service. How many of those clients do you need per year? 1.
Oh, wow.
And then what? Well, then I can do the one-on-one work that also feeds my soul and work one-on-one with clients, but those become like interspersed in that. So I have one main client that I get to work with, and I get to do that little work with the one-on-one that makes me feel fulfilled around also what I'm doing. But that gives me time with my kids, she said. That gives me time with my husband. And I'm not constantly in this productivity or trying to fulfill on an obligation. And I get to choose when those 6 months happen. Yeah. So what does then life look like for you? Do you want to plan that during the holidays or non-holidays? Well, yeah, I'd rather. So it was actually, it's like you're starting to see women make choices based on what is a priority based on the season in their life. If you've got young kids, your business is going to look different. Your finances are going to look different. When you have older kids, it starts to evolve. When you become an empty nester, it begins to evolve. Like, there are so many seasons of life that we experience as women. Not that the men don't experience it, they do. We just experience it a little differently. Mm-hmm. And honoring that when it comes to what we're designing around our business, and instead of trying to go above and beyond all the time, what would it look like to simplify and really say, okay, if I had this type of wealth in my life and I knew how to receive that dollar and take the money date, and then take that dollar and say, okay, this is going to go to investment. This is going to go to my profit. This is going to go to my business. And you start implementing that, it stops being this hamster wheel of chasing success and financial freedom. And you start looking at, okay, like you had a great guest on the podcast that talks, we've got to have the financial stability. You have to know what the plan is for your money. And I think that goes back into the planner, Michelle, right?
Yeah.
You're planning for your business, but you also have to make the plan for your money.
Absolutely. And so, I mean, just what you were saying earlier, if you don't know where you're going, if you have no targets, if you have, it's just a big free for all. And it's exactly the same with your money. And most of us kind of don't quite get there. We're just focused on getting by and getting.
Well, then this begs the question too. And I've seen it with both men and women, but I have seen it really focused on women, as I've seen women make that 6-7 figure income and they've done the business for it. And then something got pulled out from underneath them. They became, caregiver, or they couldn't commit to their business. All of a sudden the business falls, collapses for whatever reason. That income no longer comes in, but they've never been taught that financial structure behind the business. Like, I love what we're being taught around marketing. Yay! I can show you how to make money. But what I feel like we're really missing, and I love your podcast for this, and when you talk about money and you, money and me, what am I doing with that money?
Yeah.
What am I actually, like, beyond the purpose of it going into my bank account? And I think this is where a lot of us get, like, the confusion. You and I both came from corporate. Corporate, we get a paycheck. We can be making a high six-figure income. We get the paycheck come in. The taxes have been taken out. The healthcare has been taken out. All of this has been taken out. Now it's basically become our discretionary income. Mm. When you run a business, that's not what's happening. That money coming in needs to be told where to go.
Yeah.
And we don't teach that in the world of business and say, okay, that dollar came in, 10% goes over here, 20% goes here. This is your operating cost. How much is your business operating? Is it 80%, 70%, 30%? Like, I learned that in the world of culinary, right? We always talked about food cost. How much is this costing us? How much is our operations costing us? But for some reason, as an employee, hearing that level, when I stepped into my own business, it's like all that left my brain.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, this check came in. That's great. I've got all this money, but it was never given purpose. It was never intentionally designed to hold the container that this is business money, and it gets distributed in certain ways, because I was just used to that discretionary income coming in from my job, which paid the rent. And it sounds weird when you say discretionary, but it paid the rent, put us on vacation, put food in the house. But those are all both a necessity and discretionary.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they're not teaching that in business. They're teaching you a business plan. Yay. They teach you the marketing plan. Yay. But no one's having the real talks like you are around, like, did you handle a financial advisor? Do you have somebody that's helping you take that income? Because the whole purpose for me now, knowing what I know now, is building the business is supposed to support you. If you don't have any financial support in the background, Michelle's like shaking her head, yes. Like, this is the conversation where she's continuously having here on this podcast. Then you're basically working as the business as a hobby that's bound for financial disaster because it's got no financial support system underneath of it.
Yeah, I just love that you brought that up, because no matter how financially smart you are or how much money you make, it's a discipline. You have to jump in, and because it is, as an entrepreneur, as you know, I mean, sometimes you get behind. So money comes in and you're just throwing it at the things that, are out there needing to get paid. And then once in a while you realize I haven't brought any money home. So you put a little, you make your own payroll. And I feel like there is a big chase going on for most entrepreneurs all the time. And part of it's what you said, that it's just not planned well. And part of it is just this sense of I have to keep pouring money into my business for it to grow, which is another, that to me is the equivalent of I have to keep working as hard as possible, put in as much time as possible for my business to grow. And neither are true. They just feel like they are, because we've heard that a lot. And
Yeah. Have you ever heard of the profit first strategy?
Yeah. And that's
do you embrace that?
I do. I like him a lot. His name is escaping me. Is it
Mike Michalowicz?
Thank you. Yeah.
Yep.
And it's a great book. I think every entrepreneur should read the E-Myth and Profit First. And there are several, really
definitely.
But again, your business can run away. The profit first means you really have to set it up and you have to be very disciplined about implementing it, which, it's kind of basic. But as entrepreneurs, especially if you're a creative type, you want to create, you want to make that next product or service, and you want to keep pouring money into marketing. And marketing is, I would say, for business owners, marketing is the trickiest piece in terms of spending, because you can there's no end to what you can spend. So maybe you have a final comment on that one.
Yeah, I will say, like we talked about this at the beginning, I think it is, as we step into this new year, and I think anytime as we reevaluate our business, less is more. The fun part is that since 2006, all these media platforms that we're taking advantage of for marketing, a lot of what they did to get you there was to get people on those platforms. 2020 solidified everybody being on digital marketing or media in some form, fashion on a platform. So it's less about trying to be everywhere, because there are billions of people, millions of people on each platform that are your targeted audience. Mm-hmm. You just got to choose one.
Yeah.
And commit to showing up there as your most authentic self. Right? So, yeah, I think marketing becomes a simplicity. I think we've been taught in this chaos of trying to grow the digital space that we now all have access to and carry around in our back pocket via our mobile phone, is that we don't need to be everywhere anymore. The omnipresence was a beautiful thing back when there were like 5 platforms to be on. But with the, 1,000+ platforms across the globe and everyone trying to get a piece of it, less is more. Focus on your true intention. Focus on knowing who you are inside of your business, what it is you want to build, understanding your financial structure. Then marketing. What I always find interesting is marketing, if you build a business plan, is the last piece of the puzzle. Yes. Because marketing doesn't come until after you understand what it is you're in and who you are inside of your business.
Oh, that's good.
Once you understand who you are inside of your business and your role, only then can you market from that standpoint. Otherwise, you do throw away dollars trying to find something that sticks.
Yeah.
But when you design your business, and part of the planner helps with that, is it says, what is your intention? What do you want to achieve? What do you want to accomplish this year? Then you understand what it is you're actually building from. And it's really important for me. What I will just touch base with back on the Profit First is that 2 years ago, I believe, they integrated or they aligned with a financial banking system. So what I liked about that, Michelle, was that was the first time I could open a banking account and actually see that instead of trying to track it on an Excel sheet.
Yeah. And I think actually you on the podcast told me about that. I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
That's a really.
So there's one banking system designed around the Profit First strategy that is like no fees, no anything. But it was the first thing of like, the book is fantastic, but you did need an integration of it.
Yeah.
And I think that's what was missing from Mike. And I think he realized that. So he partnered up with a financial institution, a banking system. Relay is the name of it, if you guys are curious. And they are actually our partnerships. So what he teaches now becomes an integration, an actual practical element to then put into your business. And we've been using it for the last 2 years. And I will say, from a money perspective, ladies, it changed everything. Because instead of it being some ideology, it now became a tangible substance of which I see how the money comes in. And when you can automate it, for my creatives out there that don't want to deal with money, you can actually automate that whole Profit First strategy inside the banking system. So it will disperse percentage-wise to all the accounts that he talks about in there, giving you that one-click view that will help you make those decisions to move your business forward, but doing it from a fiscally and financially a sound base instead of this hypothetical one account that I'm working out of.
Yeah.
So there is that.
That's so good. And Katrina, I'd love for you to come back and talk in more depth since you've been doing this yourself. That would be really great because that's something we have not gone, into the implementation of that. And I wish I could have you for hours more here. It's so fascinating, but we're out of time. I really want you to help people. So where can they find your planner? And are you doing any kind of workshops around how to implement it?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Because it's a new type of way of looking at how our lives look as women. So the planner is your basis. So truthbombmarketing.com. You guys have seen the down here, and I'm sure it's going to be in the show notes also. You go there, the planner's front and center. Once you get the planner, there is the option of going through the dream journey. And also we have an accountability every month. So we do an inner circle so that you're supported as you're going through this, right? So we want to make sure that you what happens with the planner is it starts surfacing your habits. It starts showing you where you're at energetically, and you start seeing the pattern yourself. So it's the mirror that reflects back who you are as a woman. And I think that's the beauty of this. So yeah, they can find me at truthbombmarketing.com is the best place to learn more about me and get access to that planner.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. I think that I love what you said at the end because when I've always talked about understanding your belief systems, but when you understand your habits, that's a huge other piece of the puzzle that you
Yes.
really, I mean, I spent a lot of time in my head understanding, belief systems and patterns. And in the last few years, it's really been to reveal to me how important and some of those habits come from these beliefs, but still, we don't realize how ingrained we are with certain ways of operating. So,
Oh yeah.
yeah, thank you so much. This was so great, and you taught the audience so many things. I think this is a show people should listen to a couple of times because it was really meaty. So, thank you, and thank you for this work. It's
My
really
pleasure.
important. I mean, it's really life changing. Actually, I actually can't wait to look at the lunar calendar and see what it's all about. I've never really paid too much attention to that, but I see the value in it. So, really great. All right.
It'll
Well,
change your life.
yeah, thank you. And I'll put all the info in the show notes so people can access the planner and see more of what you do. So thank you. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you for helping people start the year off with a whole new way of looking at things. That's I love a new year. I love planning and I love a refresh on everything. So thank you. And audience, thank you so much for being here. We love having you. Listen to the Money in You podcast. You can find us on all the podcast platforms. You can find us on the Limit Free Life YouTube channel and a few other places. So you can reach out to me, Michelle at Limit Free Life, and Michelle at limitfreelife.com. Forgot that part. So thank you, and we'll see you next week.